Welcome to our first webinar panel series conversation where we have 5 amazing pitching professionals who are going to come and share some insights for 5 minutes. And then there is 5 minutes of Q&A. This is the first time we're doing this event. It has come together really nicely through a conversation with Andrew. So Andrew, thank you so much for being the fire that got us all here together, 25 people so far. So this is the intro. I forgot to set my timer off, so I'm just going to come up in 10 seconds. So guys, we're going to hand over to Robbie Crabtree right now, who's going to have 5 minutes and tell you what he knows about storytelling from his incredible interesting background. So Robbie, are you ready?
Take it away.
Let's go. So starting in 3, 2, 1. Robbie, it's all yours.
All right. So when we think about storytelling, right? Storytelling goes back to why Homo sapiens became the dominant species. The whole idea was fiction enabled the storyteller to motivate people to come together and focus on core identities, core things to go after, what was safe, what was bad to run away from, and created civilization. So knowing that is grounded in our human DNA, how do you use it as a founder when it comes to storytelling? If you go into a meeting and you are presenting numbers, data, facts, you are not memorable. You're like everybody else. Study after study after study says storytelling is 7 times, 12 times, or up to 22 times as memorable as facts alone. So this is why storytelling has to be a key part of what you're doing as a founder. Now, founder storytelling, startup storytelling is a unique animal. It is not like storytelling you've seen from Pixar where it's just entertaining. There's a difference between telling stories and being a storyteller. Telling stories is entertaining, but they're ephemeral. They get lost. They get forgotten at the end of the message. Storytelling is using stories to captivate your audience and inspire action. That's exactly why Pixar uses stories to captivate an audience and inspire action. And anyone who's here, just make sure you go on mute to not interrupt.
Get sidetracked off the game. It's all good today.
I got muted.
No, your sniggle bag will be hid.
Martin, I don't know if we can get Oliver to we've got a kid going on in the background there. But when it comes to storytelling as a founder, what you want to be able to achieve is telling your story in a compelling way. And this is where storytelling density comes in, right? Because as a founder, you've got to show your founder origin, your startup vision, and then the future story. And the startup vision story is really, where did your startup start at and how did you get it to the point that it is today? Your vision story is, how big is this going to be in the future? Because you've got to be able to, one, make investors connect to you as the founder. You're the only controllable thing in the entire equation. You're the only thing that we know from start to finish is going to be the same as the founder. So I have to know what makes you special. What makes you unique? What is your viewpoint on the world? And we do that through storytelling, through your life experience, through that moment that you had that, aha, I've got to go and build this. Then you build that startup vision story of how you got to where you are today to show that real customers have real pain and are willing to be a part of your solution. And that vision story, like I said, it's really what comes down to painting that big picture. And honestly, if that vision isn't scaring you because it is so big, you're thinking too small. If your future vision story is not scaring you, it is too small. You are not going to be venture backable. You are not going to build a massively successful thing. If Elon Musk had made his goal for SpaceX just to send some satellites into orbit, we still wouldn't have satellites in orbit from Elon Musk because they would have been steps below that. But by setting the idea of SpaceX is we're going to colonize Mars because humans need to be a multiplanetary species. Guess what steps are required to get there? Putting satellites in space, creating a reusable rocket, taking that rocket up to the space station, bringing it back. You get way closer to that goal by setting this big ambition vision goal than you do by setting a small one. And that vision story is what Ben Horowitz says about this. The story is a strategy. When you're talking to your team, when you're leading them, you're not only doing this for investors to get them on board, you're doing this so your team can understand where you're going. How do we march? No matter what you look at in any sort of pop culture reference or real life reference, whether it's Steve Jobs saying the most powerful person in the world is a storyteller, or Tyrion Lannister saying nothing is more powerful than a story, or Ragnar Lothbrok saying all things start and end as stories, or Lisa Crone in her book Wired for Story saying that it's not opposable thumbs, that makes humans so special. It's stories, because stories tell us what the thumbs should be holding on to. That's what storytelling is all about. That's why it's so powerful. And that is why if you use it right, you will win as a founder.
Bingo, Robbie, look at that landing. Perfect. What a great opener to this awesome panel event. So Robbie, thank you so much for making the time. We're going to flip into some questions. So guys, if you have a question for Robbie, please put your name in the chat and we'll ask you to be very brief and concise and ask a great story. So who's up for it? Who's in the chat? Come on, guys. Any questions for Robbie? Gahada.
Yeah, hey. So, yeah, nice one, Robbie. My question would be actually what I've been hearing the most was the opposite. People often told me to go small, be realistic. Don't say that or that, you'll scare people out. Because I have that big vision and I already have a plan, let's say, for even 2-3 years in advance. So I heard the opposite thing. So how to make the balance, not scare people off and be on the same thing, realistic, and not less just like,
I understand. I'm going to cut you off just because we're tight on time. So I'm going to answer. Don't listen to those people. It's a filtering mechanism. It's a filtering mechanism to attract the right people. You want the people who think big. The people who are like, I'll be more realistic. Guess what? Don't listen to them. It's useless advice. If you want to build something massively successful, everyone's going to tell you to think smaller, think different, be more realistic. Nothing great was ever built by being realistic. Brunelleschi's dome wasn't built by being realistic. David wasn't built by being realistic. Any massively successful thing, the Empire State Building wasn't built by being realistic. If you want to do something great, you're not being realistic. That's what it takes. Don't listen to the small-minded people if you're trying to build something big.
Happy to see that I'm not the only one thinking that. Thanks.
Fantastic.
Emil, I think Emil has his hand up.
Yeah.
Emil.
Thank you so much, Robbie. Really great to see you. I've been following you for a long time. I'm a very big, passionate storyteller as well. And my question to you is, how do you use storytelling in a 3-minute pitch at a competition or demo day of an accelerator? How can you apply storytelling when time is extremely valuable there?
So these are going to be really tight, dense stories. You're going to be using a quick kind of like 15, 30-second kind of anecdotal story to bring your point, right? And this is something as simple as when people tell me that, data and stories don't go together, I have a simple answer for you. There was this moment where Jeff Bezos was talking to people at his company, Amazon, and he said this to them: if the data and the stories don't match up, you have bad data. So he said, go back and figure out why the data isn't matching the stories. That right there is about a 30-second story that just made the point that data and stories need to match, and the story is actually the more powerful piece of all that. So when it comes to demo day, you should be figuring out ways to make 15, 30-second stories to highlight your points. Why did you do this thing? So I just had one that was in the top 20 ASU GSV conference, and we used a story of an actual person that she had worked with that set the idea in motion. And it was about a 20-second story of the challenge that this customer had that set off this event to go and build the company that she ultimately did. From that pitch conference, she ended up finding her lead investor that wrote the biggest check in her pre-seed round and led it. So that's how I would think about it. I also what are some mistakes you see that people make with storytelling? One, they way overshare. Two, they way undershare. Those, as crazy as it is, those two extremes, you need to find that sweet spot, that Goldilocks in the middle. And the other piece is people are afraid to lean into what makes them great. They are afraid to be seen as bragging. They don't want people to think that they're going over the top, but stories allow you to brag without bragging because you're making it entertaining. So what you want to do is lean into what makes you great and elevate it. Use all the credibility builders that you can. Think of that Aristotle art of rhetoric triangle: ethos, logos, and pathos. You're trying to build your ethos there with credibility. So lean into it. I know we have one more question I think that came in too.
Yeah. If you take everything big, how do you not sound the same? How do you avoid your space venture becoming about getting into a one planet further than the last venture?
Yeah, so you have the big vision, but then you have to be able to articulate how you're actually making that come true. And this is where we talk about future pacing the story. So if you've ever looked at when Instagram was selling their idea to investors, what they did is they were saying how big it was going to be, and then they're walking you through that journey. So the big vision is actually the end goal. That's the treasure chest. That's the end of the rainbow. And then you're giving them the steps to actually make that treasure map come true. When you can execute on that and show these are the steps to get there, you win.
Bingo, we all win. That was a super Q&A. So guys, thank you so much for your questions. Thank you, Robbie, for just acing that. That was awesome. Next up, we have Prateek. Prateek, are you ready?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So guys, let me just get the timer on the right moment. All right, Prateek, take it away. It is all yours.
Okay. So a lot of us feel insecure about our pitch and our message, but sometimes it's not about what you're saying, but who you're saying it to. If you find the right person, the right audience for your message, they will care. And a big part of outreach is just figuring out who are the people who can actually understand what I'm talking about, who can understand my convictions, and who are totally aligned with them. And that's really the spirit of the outreach process. Now, on a most basic level, what do you do on an investor outreach process or sales outreach process? On investor outreach, you check who's actively investing in your area and who is currently liquid and able to invest. On a sales outreach, you try to see who is willing and able to buy and has an urgency to buy right now. But there is one more emotional element to it, which is to seeing who is actually aligned on the same convictions as me. That requires something called social media listening, where once you build your initial target list of prospects, you're taking a look at who is talking about the same topic as you online. And when you've done that, you can actually save a lot of effort in establishing the context, the why or the how, when you're talking to people who have faced the same problem. I'll give you a very interesting example just from today. I've been working on a funding outreach for a Latin American El Salvador founder who has built a gamified app which helps people to borrow money on thin file and limited credit information. So what you do instead is you provide your SMS data and some others and your geolocation data, and it determines how creditworthy you are. And once you get the money, it uses gamified elements to decide the personal finance habits which can help you pay back the loan faster. When I discovered that someone from France had built something called a Fair Money with a Fair Save element, which was helping Nigerians do the same, and he was publicly active on MSN talking about it, it was much easier to frame the outreach email and define the story, which is, I noticed that you were doing this in Nigeria and other parts of Africa. I've been doing this in Latin America, and let's talk. Usually, a lot of founders have a sense of guilt about why didn't my message connect? Why didn't they understand? Why did they not feel convinced? Is it a me problem? Did I fail to explain? Did I fail to have a good business idea? Did I fail to explain why this would be a feasible business in the coming years? Sometimes it's just a matter of you might be just talking to people who just don't get it. And it's the same principle as your social life. You don't need to be friends with everybody. You just need to be friends with people who understand. Those of us who are here, we are aligned on so many thinking and so much perspectives that we are here talking together and sharing ideas together. And that's why what we talk about, it resonates. And that's so my key takeaway, just to finish off, is just find those 20 to 50 people who are talking about what you're talking about and focus your message towards them, because it's easier to find out what they like, what they care about, and tell the story. And beyond that, you don't need to overthink if you use the right tone, the right speed, if you set the right template or structure. It's as simple as that. And I'm done.
Fantastic, Prateek. Well done. Brilliant there. Big round of applause, guys, for Prateek. A super awesome pitch there. So we're going to jump into 4.5 minutes of questions. So guys, do you have any questions for Prateek? Drop them in the chat. I think what we'll do is we'll just read the questions out of the chat rather than unmute people. Okay. So there's a question from Robbie. Everybody check that out. What stage do you find outreach works best for?
Well, Robbie, I actually learned this from you, and later on many other people confirmed this, which is the best stage outreach works is long before your funding round starts, because I've been learning this the hard way, and the most successful outreach I've been doing is long before the funding round, because if you do the demand building from 1,000 people, you get the opt-in or initial interest of 50 people, and that you reached out to, and then those 50 people, you keep giving them the information as you suggested, and those people, after 3 to 6 months, they will see the full story, because everything has so many elements that you can't tell them all at once. And just talking to people who are interested saves you so much time. So it feels like doing a pre-fundraising outreach takes more time, but rather it is best to do it that way, because you're saving much time afterwards talking to people who already have the full story and context.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, guys, more questions coming in. Okay, so AP, what has been the most challenging hurdle you've run into with outreach? Great question there, AP. Thank you.
Okay, the most challenging hurdle is simply overcoming the fatigue that everybody has these days to receiving messages, emails, and everything. I just feel that that's not something we can control, because I'm inundated with messages. You guys, I get lots of messages. I'm pretty sure everyone in this chat room at some point has turned off notifications on all apps, so that's something that we can't control, which is why it just still remains an element of luck. And then the other thing is, don't investors know that you're reaching out for a future investment? Is that okay to do? Shalini, not only is that okay to do, it's considered highly acceptable, because then when people see that you're planning way ahead of a funding round, then they see you're serious, because you know how long things take, and that you're building up demand rather than doing the outreach and the funding at the same time. I think there's a question that's more general. Any book or program recommendations for storytelling? I would say if you want any kind of online course, check out Josh Braun, who often summarizes Chris Voss's negotiation techniques. And his biggest takeaway is detach yourself from the outcome. And don't push on people. Know that everybody has their own life outside of yours.
Excellent, fantastic. So any books? What's that Oliver question? Read that Oliver question, everybody, and then we'll answer that one.
So when pitching, actually, just don't talk to that investor. I've seen those people who are like trying to be aggressive and trying to put you in the backseat by interrupting and cross-questioning you. That's not a nice person. That's a bad person, honestly. And I just say, I don't think we're going to be a fit.
All right, guys, that leads us perfectly into our third presentation from Carol. Carol, are you ready?
I am.
Fantastic. We get the timer right. So, big deep breath, everybody, round of applause. Let's let the timer roll. And Carol, it's all over to you.
Hi, everyone. So first of all, thanks to everyone for being here, for taking that time out of your day to be with us. Let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Carol. My nickname is the Startup Girl. I've been selling for the past 12 years. I've been a founder. I've been a founding member of several startups, 3 of them that have been acquired. And for the past 2 years, I work as a consultant. I work with early stage technical founders, teaching them how to build and scale their first sales playbook, how to get from 0 to $1 million in ARR, how to figure their go-to-market strategy. So I want to talk to you. I've worked with over 150 startups in the past 2 years, and I want to give you some very actionable tips. So I would recommend taking notes of the 5 things that you need to master and the 5 things. Oh, did I lose you guys?
Oh, sorry. I just reconfigured it. My bad. You keep going, Carol. We're all good.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. The 5 things to master and the 5 things to avoid. So let's start. Number 1, you need to master your elevator pitch. You need to have a clear, concise, structured, value-packed way to explain to anyone, no matter their industry knowledge or expertise, what it is that you do. Having a clear elevator pitch will help you gain people's attention really fast. Ranting and not having one in place is the fastest way to lose your audience. That's number 1. Number 2, Prateek was just talking about outreach. You need to have a method as an early stage founder to go out and find your audience. You start with your elevator pitch. You need to figure out who's your ICP, who's your ideal client profile, who are you selling to, what are their titles, what are their company sizes, where do they live, what are they interested in, how are they solving for the problem now, how is your solution better? And that's how you need to approach it. Step number 3, you need to have a sales process. You need to have a basic sales playbook in place with clear, concise steps that will allow you to convert someone from a lead to a paying customer. You cannot wing that. So if we look at a B2B sales process, the basic way to look at it would be lead gen, qualifying, which is by far the most important part, demoing, and closing. Have a process for yourself to know what are the steps to get someone to become a customer for my company. Number 4, which Robbie touched upon, having a brand. A brand is a consistent experience that people have when they interact with you. As a founder, you need to be the chief storytelling officer. You need to be a brand evangelist. You need to be creating a story that people will connect to emotionally, and that's how they'll remember you. It's not about the features. It's not about logic. It's about how are you able to connect with your audience on a deep emotional level? And number 5 is timing. You need to start selling right now. Pre-product market fit, there's an obsession with product, with shipping features. These are all assumptions. The way to validate your assumptions is go out, test the market, see what sticks, go back to the drawing board, build and sell at the same time. Now let's look at the 5 things to avoid. Number 1, if I build it, people will come. That's a lie. It doesn't work. You cannot assume people will find you. You need to be out there and looking for your audience. Number 2, we spoke about processes. You need to have systems. You need to have scripts when you're cold calling. You need to have a script when you're qualifying. You need to know why your pricing is set a certain way. You need to have a process for when you get someone into a pilot. You cannot be doing things ad hoc. Systems and processes will save you. Number 3, and this is the big one, not following up. I talk to a lot of founders that will tell me they have great conversations with their prospects. And then I always ask, okay, when are you talking to them again? What are next steps? And they don't know. It's not up to the prospect to create those next steps. It's up to you. You need to be driving the conversation forward. That's why it's called selling. Number 4, and this is a big one, hiring too soon. You should not be hiring talent, sales reps, or leadership if you do not have some indications of product market fit, and if you do not have a basic sales process people can plug into. You're not paying them to create processes, you're paying them to come in and start working from day 1. And number 5, which is big, please start charging. I talk to a lot of companies that do not charge for pilots, that do not charge their early customers. You need to be charging for your business. If you have an MVP, if you're out selling, if you're onboarding users, you need to be charging for your service. And that's it. We're on time.
Wow, fantastic, Carol. Thank you so much for that awesome pitch. Wow, guys, 3 amazing knowledge drops in a row. We're going to jump back into our Q&A. So, guys, if you have questions for Carol, put them in the chat, please. And, Carol, I'm going to apologize for changing the setting that confused you a little bit. Apologies for that. I shouldn't tinker.
Do I get 10 more seconds to finish up, Martin, or are we good?
You didn't need it. You didn't need it. That was perfect. So we've got a question from Robbie. How can founders get over the fear of being salesy?
It's a great question. I think it's a matter of changing their mindset. So, of course, there's a big stereotype of the used car salesperson we all have in mind, but people should also know that if you don't have sales, if you don't have cash flow, that's how startups die. The number 2 reasons why startups die is no product market fit, running out of cash. So you need to understand that customers are the lifeblood of your business, and there's no one better as the founder. No one will be as excited. No one will have the product knowledge to go out and sell. When you make that mindset switch, it's easy to go out and test the market, and that will help you with your fear of, am I being salesy? Am I being pushy?
Fantastic.
Hey, Carol, how do you overcome being a young founder in the mind of your customers? So I'm 25, and sometimes I feel like they don't trust me enough or don't see me credible enough. And you having built a company and sold it at 24, I think you know something about it.
Sure. And it's a valid concern, right? It's a valid question, Emil, but I'll tell you that the majority of founders I work with are 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and they are able to build massive businesses. So there's, preconceived notions about being young, but at the same time, being a startup founder has a lot of advantages. The customer service you provide, how fast you are and you're able to ship features, how your first customers are real partners for you versus a biggest company that doesn't necessarily care. And I think that I'll tell you this, people buy for 3 different reasons. Number one, they buy because they see you as an expert. When you speak, when you're building your brand, when you're showing up online, you're coming across as someone that has a solid knowledge of the industry you're selling into. Number 2, people buy because your company comes across as an expert, right? As an authority in the space. So starting to showcase social proof, again, being able to talk about the industry. And lastly, because of number 1 and number 2, you come across as competent. When people talk to you, they imagine the problem solved. So again, it's a matter of mindset on your end. Don't let that deter you or take away your confidence. A lot of times, startups and young companies are better to work with just because we get things done.
Excellent. I want to jump onto the bottom of what Seb said. So what actions can one take to shift the mindset to start charging? So at the beginning, we're like, oh, I can't charge for this, but actually to others, it has huge value. So is there any moment or thing to look out for when you go, oh, actually, I can sell this?
It's also a matter of, winging it. And it's also a matter of believing that you can do it, right? So what I've seen is that when you don't charge, the loss is much greater. And I'm not talking about the monetary value. I'm talking about typically users that are not charged, they're not engaged. You have to take them on a larger trial. You don't get the feedback that you want. So you need to know that when people have to put their hands in their pockets and pay money for something, automatically it is our nature to want to engage more, to be more serious about that purchase. So if you're not thinking about it in dollars and cents, think about the feedback that you want to get from those early users and just get over it. Just start charging. What's the worst thing that can happen, right? A lot of it at the beginning is just being confident and just taking it day by day.
Excellent. And then we've got 30 seconds for the last question I can pick up. So from Gahada again, constant concern about how to build the product and how to fund it, how to start. Sounds like Gahada's got a lot of things in front of her. What would you say in the last 15 seconds to her?
What is the question?
It sounds like she's got lots of questions. What's going to help motivate her to keep going? What would you just encourage her?
The vision of the company, right? I'm sure as a technical founder, she knows the product better than anyone else. So how cool would it be to take all that knowledge and convey it to her audience?
There you go. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Carol. Brilliant, guys. We've got 2 presentations left. Please use the chat to network freely. So drop your LinkedIn, your profile, your WhatsApp, however you want people to connect with you. Just fill the chat. Okay, please use this as an opportunity to connect. Some amazing people here. Andrew, you're up next. Are you set, my friend? Okie dokie. Excellent, guys. This has been epic. So, Andrew, in 3, 2, 1, start whenever you are ready.
I'm set. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to switch gears a little and talk about performance. And what I want you to do is think for a moment. What do you want to sound like? What do you want to look like when you take that stage? So if you're doing a pitch club competition or you're walking into an investor meeting, what is it that you want to sound and look like? And I've talked to a lot of people about this. And usually what happens is we get confident, professional, knowledgeable, skilled, some combination of those things. Sometimes people say, well, I want to be enthusiastic and excited too. The problem with these is they're actually monotone. If you're professional or knowledgeable, even if you're enthusiastic the whole time, you're monotone. And we know monotone doesn't work. So we need to figure out other places to go. Stories are not just confident. Stories are not just knowledgeable. Stories are not just enthusiastic. Stories have pain, right? Stories have suffering. Stories may include some empathy for that pain, or they may be something like, ouch, right? That hurts. Either that hurts someone else and I feel sorry for them and I want to help them, or that hurts me. Ow. You need to take us to those places. Stories also, we have questions sometimes, right? We don't know how we're going to solve this problem. Robbie earlier was talking about an origin story, right? How do we figure that out? He was talking about the moment, the customer that helped us get there to figure it out. Well, we figured it out, right? That's amazement, or that's drive. That's not just confidence, right? We also might, at times while we're on this journey, right? We might be frustrated. That's okay. We want to hear about your journey. We want to hear about the story, not just the good news, but the bad news too, right? There are other moments on this journey. There might be a light bulb moment, right? There might be a moment where you figure out how something works. There might be a moment that's beyond enthusiasm and excitement. Why are we going to believe in you? We're going to believe in you because your heart's in this. We're going to believe in you because your DNA's in this. Robbie earlier was talking about dreaming big. Well, if you're going to dream big, you need more than just enthusiasm. You need your heart and your soul. You need to remember, emotions are contagious. If you want us to catch your journey, if you want us to catch your passion, if you want us to catch your emotions, you need to feel them. You need to take us to those places, and you need to give us time for us to feel those things. And space. We're going to hear it not only in your voice. These spaces are going to be slower and darker and deeper. Those spaces are going to be higher and lighter, faster. We're also going to see it in your face. We're going to see it in your shoulders. There are going to be moments where you collapse. There are going to be moments where you lean in and you're excited and you're passionate about what you're doing. Nancy Duarte has a great talk on this. What is, what could be. Martin Luther King's speech. She does a bunch of them. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That's not it. It's great. It's not the space most of our stories are in. The space that most of our stories are in has some of the middle ground too. So we may start here and head here and cruise along here and then head here and drop down to here and then take off. So there's going to be a trajectory to your story. Every story trajectory is going to be different. What I want you to do is I want you to map out your story trajectory. Think about how it feels and allow yourself to feel those things, and your audience will too.
Magic, Andrew. Thank you so much for that fantastic use of the whiteboard. I love that. So very, very cool.
Need some help with my sketching skills, Martin.
Oh, well, we could talk about that. Excellent. That was brilliant. So guys, who's got a question for Andrew? Drop your name in the chat. Is that a question? How did we discover the passion for presenting? What can we share for value on that one? Is that a question?
My passion is about helping good things happen. So helping people present is the medium through which I do that. Helping people present I wouldn't actually say that's the passion itself. The passion itself is knowing that there are these great ideas, there are these great things that need to see the light of day. Helping people do that, helping people gain traction on that. That's what brings me to the stage and wanting to help people be on stage.
Fantastic. Well, let's add to that. Emil, what's your question?
Yeah, sometimes I get told that I am way too excited about my business idea. I'm way too enthusiastic. And sometimes I can't read the room properly. Any advice for that?
So, yes, because I had the same problem. I do these workshops and I get excited about them. And these workshops are sometimes an hour long. And I'd interview people at the end of the workshop and they'd say, hey, how are you feeling? And, oh, that was great. No, but how are you feeling? Well, I'm exhausted. And I kind of put the pieces together and I said, you know what? That's no good. I don't want you to be exhausted. And my energy was exhausting them. And that was actually a turning point for me. When I realized I needed to have, I needed to have some of these spaces. I needed to have some spaces where I could take it down and let people think and let people consider. Pausing's huge in this. You need to learn to let ideas sit and sink in. If you ask a question, you need to let people sit and try and answer the question and wrestle with the question before you answer it for them. If you answer the question before they have had a chance to struggle with it, then you've lost the opportunity to develop any sort of credibility for having answered the question because they didn't realize it was a hard question. They only realize it's a hard question when you let them struggle and then offer to help. So you need to think about the cost of being too excited all the time and figure out places that you can slow down, pause, and give the audience space.
Andrew, let's add to that with what AP's asking. So that's fantastic. Thank you. Brilliant question there. So what's the role of body language in effective pitching? How can one make it authentic? What would you say to that?
Part of this spins back to some of the things Robbie was saying with storytelling. You know, if we think about storytelling, and I think you'd agree with this, Robbie, with storytelling, we want to lean into specific moments, not generalities. So, for example, last week at Pitch Club, we had someone who was talking about how they felt when they were a child, which is a generality. Instead of, how did you feel on March 27th when that teacher gave you that exam back? And that's a specific moment. When you lean into specific moments, your body language is going to go back. You're going back to that moment. And your body language is going to come back and work to complement and supplement its alignment. So I think about visuals. This is a good cue for you coming up here, Martin. I think about 4 communication tracks. One is story. The other 3 tracks are visual, body language, and voice. And they all need to be in alignment with each other. When they're all in alignment with each other, magic happens. But part of getting the body language right is allowing yourself to go those places and re-experience those things. And then everybody will be there to watch it with you.
Fantastic. Great answers there, guys. I'm so sorry if we have not managed to get to your question, but please keep asking them in the chat. We will then dig into the chat afterwards and start to create more content based on your questions. So please add a ton of questions. That will really help everybody who's sharing today to figure out how to help in future social media content. Magic. All right, it's my turn. Whoop-a-doo. Let's do this. So let me make sure I'm on the right slide. I should have been ready. All right. Okay, what's going on? Watching a master at work here get completely fumbled with his PowerPoint slides because we're talking about slides. So now I am super looking forward to sharing my pitch. So can everybody see Jack and Jill? Yeah, excellent. All right, so let me get my timer counting down. All right, so I want to talk to you about Jack and Jill. They have been working on this presentation for 2 weeks. Overtime like crazy, constantly revising their message, getting their data together, really being super focused on what's going to make the right message connect to their right audience. And as they can see, the room is filling up. People are coming. They know there's going to be a great presentation with a great idea at tonight's event. You can feel it in the air. So Jill steps forward, smile, looks at her co-speaker, co-founder Jack, looks out to the audience, big deep breath, and says, why now? Because the winter is coming. We can feel it in the air. The seasons are changing. We know that we're about to hit the long, hard winter. She then pauses for a moment, lets the audience feel that, steps back, and Jack steps forward with a stern look on his face. And reports are in. We're completely running dry. We have like a week left before we are completely run out. This is our pain point. But I have a solution. And this is the solution. The mammoth. It is 2.5 people tall. It runs faster than Clive. It is a beast. But when we hack this thing down in the hunt, we have fur and fuel and meat, and we will survive the winter. Are you with me, people? This is our solution if we work as a team. So this was the world's first ever pitch. Somewhere in a cave, a community of people saw a problem, realized the time was now, came up with a solution, but they had to communicate it to the wider audience. So when we look at cave paintings, I tell myself this story. And what I've just told you is completely unacademic. It is the story I tell myself, the story I tell people to say, hey, we know how to do this. Stories are in our DNA. We have been listening to stories since forever. We have been sharing stories through play and games and adventures and comics and movies. And now stories are super important in business. Now, where it started was a dark cave, damp, safe, and you could paint and present on the wall. Fast forward through history, we got to this point where we would meet in a room and we would share, and we'd have slides and we'd tell stories and we'd engage. Then COVID happened. Now we do it like this, standing, looking into our laptops, sharing our ideas, pitching in our digital cave. Now, I don't want to call it a digital cave. I want to call it a digital campsite, a campfire. So we have 42 people here today around our digital campfire, and we're telling stories. And this is what we've always done. However, the tools are updating. So I want to share with you some tips that you can get visual when you're pitching. So how do we update the tools? What do we actually need to do? All of the images that I use in my presentations come from this website, Unsplash. Free, high-res, professional, amazing, diverse, intricate, detailed pictures. Every photograph you've seen has come from this website. Flat icon is an amazing one for very detailed infographic icons. So Prateek, you were writing about this on LinkedIn today. Flat icon is your one. And if you want to learn how to sketch, you can download my first mini book, a 10-step guide to get you from I can't draw to I'm sketching and unleashing your superpower. So it's on Gumroad. It's $2. Go and check it out. But what are we communicating? Has to be tangible. Has to make sense to the audience, has to be something that people go, yes, that's useful. But it has to have emotion. Because if we don't have emotion and it's pure blah, the internet's got that covered. So the balance is for you to figure out for your audience in that particular context. And like the image in the middle, the yin yang symbol, it has balance, it has flow, it has order, it is tight, it is consistent, it is surprising, and it's formed. So take that as a design aesthetic, hit your targets, because we've gone from this to this, and it's not changing. So guys, use visuals and communicate. So thank you very much. Let's hit it up for some Q&A. Who's got some questions? Drop your questions in the chat, please. What program do I use for sketching? Is that the first one? So I use a Sketches app called Sketches, and it's on the phone, it's on the iPad. I will put the link in the chat. It is beautiful. There's a free version, there's a paid for version. And I don't use a stylus for my sketches. I use my finger. So forget about buying $100 pencil. Just start with your broken iPhone and your finger. That's all you need. Thank you.
Martin, if you stop your screen share, we'll be able to see you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All right. Any more questions? What we got? Do I prefer to stand or be sitting when I'm pitching? I always stand. So I'm standing right now. Standing is the posture of confident, intentional storytelling. Sitting down is the posture of writing an email, as well as lots of other things. So you wouldn't go to an in-the-room event with somebody, sit down and present. You would stand up. And it's the same rules online. It's just we're all around our own digital cave, digital campfire, digital meeting room. That's what I would say. Next question. How can someone misuse visuals with presentations? Brilliant question. You can do what I used to do and share too many. So in preparation for today, I sent a demo over to Andrew, and Andrew was like, cut the slides. You've got way too many. So I had 38 slides and I finished with 24. So I culled quite a lot of slides, and over presenting is really bad. So thank you for that question. Sebastian, how much is too many graphics? I think that answers your question a little bit. It's like, it's a bit like flavoring food. How chili is too chili, how spicy is too spicy. Some people, so have that aesthetic to it. Where else are we? How can we balance align voice and sketching? Just to make sure that the sketch amplifies what you're trying to say. And a sketch is beautiful because it's so simple to read that you don't get lost in its artistic merit. You focus on its value of communication. So just sketch. There's never too much sketching. 15 slides into 3 minutes, that you just divide 270 seconds by 15 and you probably get like 30 seconds a slide. But that means you're going to become dup, 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 dup. So you want to have some flow to it. Some slides are super fast and some are linger, but maybe try and get that done in 9 slides. Should I ditch the deck and just talk? Sometimes that works really well. Sometimes it's good to have slides. You've seen both tonight. And I think that was super interesting that we've had talking heads, whiteboards, and slides. Each is insanely powerful as long as they are. I think Robbie wrote about this, the difference between perfection and purposeful. What did you say on that, Robbie? You posted something on LinkedIn. Don't be perfect, be purposeful or prepared. What was it, your take on it? Do you remember?
Preparation creates precision.
Yeah.
that would be that.
Yeah. So it's just keep doing it and be able to do both. All right. Cool. So let's wrap it up there. That is amazing, guys. Thank you so much for all of our speakers, Robbie, Prateek, Carol, Andrew, myself, for Pitch Club for helping to host and promote this incredible event. We've still got 12 minutes. So let's have an open Q&A and get everybody sharing answers. We won't ask people to read their question out. We'll just put it in the chat. People, please use the next 12 minutes to ask some amazing questions. Oh my God, was it that good? There are no questions. Guys, we did it. We should definitely charge next time. Okay, how did Carol get started in startups?
It was accidental. I joke and I say I was an accidental founder. So when I first moved to New York, my first job was literally starting a company. Back in 2010, non-dairy products weren't as popular as they are today. I happened to be lactose intolerant. There was no saturation in the market. So my partner and I started a CPG company where we were manufacturing and selling our product. And after that company got bought out by a bigger beverage company, I had done some sales. I knew I was decent at it at the moment, and I decided to join a startup because why not? So I mean, I was 23 and I joined my first tech startup doing cold calls. I've probably made more than 500,000 cold calls at this point, and that startup became acquired. So after that, I was like, this is great. And I just kept doing it. So there was not a, a big plan. It sort of happened. And again, back in 2010, 2011, startups were not where they are today. So, I wish I could say it was intentional, but back then it wasn't.
Fantastic. Thank you. We're getting some great questions coming in through the chat. So quick one for Robbie. How do you get a meeting without a deck? What would you say to that?
So this is probably the largest mistake that founders make when it comes to running a process is they don't realize how much time you have to put into it before you actually run your fundraising process. The way you get introductions and meetings without a deck is you've been building relationships for months before you ever get there. And I put out a LinkedIn post, 2 days ago, that broke down how you can build those relationships, even if you don't have any, by building relationships with the founders of the investors you want to speak to. And by opening those doors and kind of creating this backdoor way in, by building relationships with founders who've been backed by these funds, you can then get introductions to them. The key is it takes 6, 9, 12 months of building these relationships. You cannot rush this process. If you're trying to get a meeting, the investor needs to know why they care about you. You have to put in the work. I'm tired of seeing lazy founders who think that you can just automatically get a meeting. Investors don't owe you anything. Put in the time to do the work. This is hard. Just like being a professional athlete is hard, being a founder is hard, and you need to step into it and lean into it and actually get it done.
Fantastic, Robbie. Thank you so much. Andrew, one for you. What's your best advice for a naturally, facially, vocally less expressive person to bring emotion into their pitch? How can people get to a better?
Two things, Flo. One is map this stuff out. Like literally ask yourself, how do I feel about this piece of information? And be honest with yourself. Sometimes there's not much emotion there, but sometimes there is. Sometimes you're like, well, I think this is really cool. And other times you're like, how did I feel when I was working on this? Well, I was frustrated. So interrogate yourself. And if you don't feel like you have an expressive voice, go find a child to read children's stories to and record yourself reading them. Because I guarantee you have an expressive voice inside you. I've done this exercise with hundreds of people. We all have expressive voices. And we've trained it out of ourselves in professional settings. And if you want to be a storyteller, you need to let that expressive voice back in. Because the story without the voice isn't a story. There's now a disconnect and it doesn't land.
All right, Andrew, thank you so much for that. Prateek, you are up next. Tell us what you mentioned in the chat, the Swiss startup to ditch the pitch. Tell us all about it.
So apparently the Swiss developer tools company, they are working in something that's super technical, and their pitch deck was bound to be filled with jargon. And I know where that ends up. It never ends up well. So what I did instead was just ask them, can't you just ask your customers how they feel about you and just report that instead? So then they mentioned, well, what we do for our customers is so essential, they can't admit publicly that they used us because they're using it to avoid getting audited and shut down. And I told them, that's the story.
Excellent. So basically that's it. That is such a good twist on, what's right in front of you is so novel and can be an amazing reveal to somebody else. Guys, we have like another 4 or 5 minutes of questions. So who wants to pick one up from the chat? Robbie, how do you avoid sounding scripted as a result of practice?
So there's a U shape that you're going to go on when you start working on something that's more polished. So the U shape looks like this. At the top of the U, you sound natural, but you sound unpolished. You sound very messy, rambling, and these sort of things. On the U shape, what happens is as you go down and you practice, you start to sound more polished, but you sound rehearsed. What then changes, though, is you come back up on this U. And at the top of the U is polished and natural. The reason this happens is because once you've rehearsed enough, you have internalized it and now turned it into your own thing. Once you internalize it, now it's not a rehearsed answer. It's part of your own kind of storytelling. It's your own thought that you are now sharing with the world. But we've dialed it in from that rambling, messy answer that makes you sound like you're unprepared into something that's super polished, but is still very authentic in your voice.
Fantastic. Thank you. Carol, we've got one. What's your thoughts on Rahul, who's asking, what is the number one problem mistake you see founders committing when they begin working with you?
That's an excellent question. And I also want to answer something that was asked before that I think it's important. But to start with Rahul's question, the number one mistake you can make when starting to work with a coach, whether it's someone that helps you with fundraising or sales, doesn't matter. It's not being coachable. You need to blindly trust the process and follow it. If you are not coachable, there's nothing that anyone can do to help you succeed. I mean, there's a saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. The founders that I work with that trust the process blindly and are coachable and are curious and are diligent, blow it out of the water. The people that don't fail very fast. And it's not just in their sales engagement with me, but in general, you need to put your head down and do the work.
Fantastic. And what were you going to say? You were going to add to another point. Please share that.
There was a question in the chat before, which was basically like, when someone's on the fence, do you push them? Do you continue the conversation forward, or do you kind of wait? And the answer is you absolutely continue the conversation. Of course, there's a balance. You don't want to be that pushy salesperson that doesn't know when to stop. However, the thing is this, the most important part of a sales process is qualifying. You need to understand if prospects are ready, willing, and able to buy from you. You need to understand their decision-making, their timing, their budget, their needs. If those boxes are checked, you should absolutely be pushing for next steps. If they are not, if someone is not qualified, it doesn't matter how many times you follow up, what discounts you offer, it doesn't matter what you do, they will not close and you will be wasting both your time and their time.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a massive one. That one you have to feel quite a few times before you go, oh, okay, this is what it is. Like there's a certain amount of intuition in there as well as knowing the landscape. Brilliant. Okay, guys, we've got a couple of minutes left. Have I missed any questions? We got the scripting one. I think let's wrap it up there, guys, because we always want to try and finish on time. So a massive thank you to Carol and Robbie and Prateek and Andrew for sharing such laser sharp mini presentations. I hope you like the tequila wasabi style of today's session. Guys, thank you so much for joining. We had 42 people in. We're now down to 36. So what I want to do just real fast is just say a massive thank you to Pitch Club. And Pitch Club is a weekly event that we host. We normally do it at this time, but today was a panel event. We have some amazing Pitch Club people here today, and they've gone through incredible transformations. So today's format was to say, hey, let's share what we know from amazing experts. The regular session is, why don't you turn up and pitch, and you'll get insane feedback from our community. So this is the style and vibe that we have. So guys, please come and check out Pitch Club. Come and enjoy it. Please drop your links in the chat. Everything we do through LinkedIn. So really use this chat in the last couple of minutes to connect and make everything totally worthwhile. And again, guys, awesome. This was very effortless, high value. So thank you. Good guys.
Martin, you want to do a fun screenshot with everyone?
Oh yeah, guys, let's all get our cameras on, and we will do a GIF. So we'll do some gesture that looks awesome. So get your cameras on. We're going to make an awesome Zoom GIF. Make sure your hair looks good. What can we do? What was a good one at Pitch Club? All right, let's do roaring like a tiger. All right, guys, 3, 2, 1. Come on, Robbie. No, couldn't do it. All right, legend, guys. Thank you.
Robbie roar.
Very soon. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.